Point Chevrolet. CE8 5LH. I saw him last night too. Usually when you see people like that, you gotta pay attention. Water. When you notice that they're like noticing you. The sun's getting on my nerves already. It's too bright. I found a treasure trove of information at the library. Absolutely had a blast. Definitely will be back. Had to pay for parking. It was a mess. It was an absolute mess. I had to, so I get to the campus because I went to a college because none of the other libraries were open. Some of the libraries here are still not open. It's 11:30 in the afternoon. That's brunch. They're not open. Where is one to do schoolwork if the libraries are not open until 12 p.m. in the afternoon? So anyways, I go to the college library. I had to pay for private parking. It was a ton of it. What is this guy doing? God, here he goes again. He done went by twice. So I get to the campus and all comments not pertaining to Talk It 2, which is what we're doing right now. This is Talk It 2, and unfortunately it's Talk It 12, okay? Any comments not pertaining to it will be blocked. So I get to the campus and I need to access the library, but I get to the parking lot and I realize that they have parking signs that you will be towed. So I had to drive down the road, and there was a girl that I asked. I was like, hey, where do I get a parking pass or whatever? And she was like, you can order one online or whatever. And she was like, you need a pass to park in this parking lot. And I didn't have one. So I went down the road, and sure enough, they have a whole parking center. Yes, you heard me right. They built an entire building, probably a $500,000 building, and it says parking advisory. So I go in there and I'm like, hey, what do I need to do to get a pass so that I can go to the library? And she's like, oh, you can buy a pass at the meter. So I went and bought a pass at the meter, and then I got so then I finally walk across campus after parking, get into the library, and the guy says, you need your driver's license. So I had to walk all the way back to the car, all the way back. It was crazy. So then you have to fill out like a visitor's pass, which was pretty easy. They take your driver's license and stuff like that, and they have your tag number from the parking. He also said that they do like, because they had a huge selection of books, and he did say that they do temporary library cards. Like, you can be like, they'll let me rent books. I mean, it was just so much information there. So much information. I got my computer reset up. I went ahead and downloaded OBS so that I can start streaming videos. First of all, to do that, you can't even download stuff from YouTube. I download stuff from YouTube, and then I go and look in my computer files for the download, and it does not download to the computer. It downloads to the YouTube app. I don't know why things have to be so complex in life, but it definitely is. It definitely is. And technology is not my strong suit. It's my worst suit, okay? I'm old school. I know how to read a book, honey. I can probably read it in my head better than out loud, but look at this program. Let's see if I can get it to open with no Wi-Fi. So this is the program that you would need to do a side-by-side stream, just take a gander at how many buttons that I feel like I'm going to be creating beats. This looks like something that you would use to produce music. You know what I mean? Like in a sound booth with like all of these little key tables and stuff. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. Impossible to download stuff. I don't know yet. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it. It's been crazy. So I was 10 minutes late for the conference call, but it's okay. It's all right. It's all right. Everything was fine. I got everything set up okay. Okay. But I want to talk about, first of all, they had tons of literature in there. You don't see that in libraries anymore. And I've got it pinpointed to a year. It seems to be that after the 2008 recession, they stopped producing books the way that they were. And then we got Obama in office. It's really crazy to go through the library and see. You can see whole sections dating back to the 1920s. Literature, year after year, 1920, 1921, 1922. And then you get to 2008 and 2009, and it stops. And it's not just one section. It's every single section of the library. Now, there's many reasons for this. The 2008 recession stopped production on a lot of books. They were cutting costs. Also, none of these people are my regular followers. So I'm just going to cut this off. People have no respect. There we go. All right. So it seems that production went down on books. They also laid a shit ton of people off during the 2008 recession that had to do with books being produced and people getting contract deals with books. So usually you would write a book and then you'd go to a publisher and try to get a contract and see if they can mass produce that book for you. Well, after the 2008 recession, it seems that publishing completely fell off. Then there's the introduction of like Spotify. And I know you're thinking, well, what does music and movies have to do with books? It's another line of entertainment. See, back in the day, in the 1816 damn hundreds, all we had was books. We didn't have television. We didn't have radio. Sure, they had damn medieval festivals back then, but it wasn't in the palm of their hand, full entertainment. I mean, you can go on this phone now and there's HBO Go, there's Netflix, there's YouTube Music, Spotify, Pandora. It seems that a lot of these social media platforms started at the same time, right after that 2008 recession. Spotify, I think, was one of them that I saw on that list. With the introduction of mass music, mass media, every touchscreen phones, let me fact check that, touchscreen phones, with that, people are not interested in books anymore. So there was a shift after the 2008 recession. Production was down on books, publishing was down on books, and I'm telling you guys, I've got video after video of books dating back to the 1920s, and then publication stops in 2009 when Obama goes into office. Give me 1 second. What was I going to ask it? Shit. Yo, it was important. It doesn't matter. Even if I had the comments on, nobody'd remind me. That's why I cut them off. It's like, damn, I might as well just do it by my fucking self. Nobody even has any interest in like what's going on out here but me, apparently. It's annoying. The whole reason of a comment section is so people have input into the conversation. But so many times I get on here and there's no conversation about really what's important. It's asking me personal questions. No, thank you. So something that I found interesting, some of my favorite collections that stopped production after 2009, there was a journal of experimental education. I find it very interesting that they had journal after journal of experimental education, and then look at the difference in the book sizes. So those orange books are everything we were, this was, the orange books were the 1960s. 1970s, 1997. And then you'll see these small bind black books. They only date to 2011. All experimental science through education just stopped. Look, I'll show you again. And the last series of books from 2005, I do believe, to 2011 or 12, when this series stopped production, or when they stopped developing new, what is it called, experimental education processes. Those books are significantly smaller in the last 5 to 7 years of production in comparison. Look at how big those are, which means it has a lot more information. Somebody worked super hard on that. And then look at the small black ones right before they stopped all of this science. It's science. So there's the big bind books. And then the smaller ones from like 07 to 11. And then there's nothing else on this experimental education after that. First of all, I know it sounds creepy to say experimental education, but all of our education came from experimenting with different ways to teach and learn. Here, I'll give you another one. Psychology in schools. First of all, they absolutely used to teach psychology. Y'all, this makes me so angry I can barely get it out. Let me tell you why. They don't teach psychology in school anymore. They're trying to dumb the population of people down, and they've successfully done that for the past 20 years. Most people coming out of school are not well equipped to take on society. They're not being taught, things that are imperative to survival. And psychology is one of them. Teaching humans how to healthily think is imperative. Look at this. Starts all the way back in the 50s. There's the 60s. Moves into the 70s and 80s. And then in 2009, I do believe it completely stopped. Let me verify that. 2009. You want to know how many of these I have? About 12. So I was absolutely right in my assessment that something happened somewhere along the line in the early 2000s, and we stopped growing. We stopped obtaining knowledge. We stopped developing things. We stopped research. I love this one. Decision science. What is decision science? Yeah, it's a form of science that helps you make decisions. It also stopped in 2009. So all of these books, 1969, 1982, and then in 2009, we just stopped. Hold on. What is this? National real estate. Hold on. Yeah, they don't want you to know anything about that, honey. They don't want you to own shit. National Real Estate Investor Collection. It seems that their first edition started in 1974, and then it's going to disappear once again in 2009. Look at all those collections of books. And then production, new copies just stopped. 2009. Let me verify. Let me watch the end. 2009. Let me pause it. Ugh, you piece of shit. Why don't I go back? 2009. Review of Black Political Economy. Also had a huge collection, and it stopped in 2011, I do believe. No, it stopped in 2006. Journal of Black Studies. Also, collection upon collection. There should be a book for every single year. It also stops in 2009. Journal of Military History. Collection upon collection stops in 2009. Now, I only went through a few shelves and noticed that there was a theme of books missing, books that were never produced or taken out of circulation. Like, it doesn't make any sense. This right here was very interesting. This is a Times collection. Every year Times puts out a book of all of their newspaper articles. I think that this is this is wonderful. We used to have these big machines and you could look in them and read old newspapers. They don't have a new copy sitting on the shelf. This one dates back to 1921. Huge historical manuals, and they just stopped production in 2010. Popular Science, which is a like magazine type thing, they also had every edition until the late 2000s. What year? So it goes all the way from the 80s to 2007. The 08 recession negatively impacted the book industry through decreased spending, consolidation within publishing houses, and layoffs. While some publishers experienced a slight decline in sales, particularly in 2009 and then 2010, the industry saw a push towards digital publishing, changes in business models. So things like ebooks, YouTube, like got bigger, that it got put on phones. That's what I was going to see. That's what I was going to see. I remember my question. What year did touchscreen phones drop? 2007. And they would have been really exclusive around 2009. And that's what it says. It says the first mobile phone with the capacity of touchscreen was the LG Prada, released in May of 2007. By 2009, touchscreen mobile phones were becoming trendy and quickly gaining popularity in both basic and advanced devices. So we have the 08 recession holding up publishing and money to go towards books. Then we have touchscreen phones hitting the market. We have Obama hitting the office, which negatively impacted this country in so many ways that most people will never be able to fathom. And it absolutely impacted our books and the types of books that were on shelves for people. Services like Netflix, Spotify, and music services started to become big because of touchscreen phones, which negatively impacts books and book sales because people are addicted to their phone and they're not seeking out reading material. Sorry, we're kind of learning together today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Exactly 12 editions of books. And that it took me less than 10 minutes to find those. I literally walked down an aisle, looked at a section, saw when they started producing the book, and saw the last year that they had a copy for one, and it was a no fucking brainer. And this, my friends, is called statistical analysis. Okay, and we're going to talk about that right now. So all these old men, I was going to literally screenshot this and go get pictures made, but I don't have time. So all of these old men are actually the founding fathers of statistical analysis. These bright geniuses were mathematical geniuses, and through kind of like a process of elimination, they were able to come up what we call statistics today. And it's really interesting because this method had been applied all the way back to like the Roman Empire. They were actually judging weather and other things by a statistical pattern, okay? And they did this by studying long periods of time. If we're using the weather for an example, they would do a statistical analysis of rain or a storm, and they would do this over a series of years, and they would collect data, and they would compile that data, and then compare that data to each other based on the day and the year. I hope I'm saying this right. I know what stats are because it's one of my favorite things on earth. I didn't really know this much information until I picked up this book, and it was great. This library had more books than I've ever seen in another library in recent years. So one of these guys' name is Bernoulli. James Bernoulli. He lived in the 1600s, honey. He's really the father, the founding father of statistical analysis. And also, y'all, Abraham D. Moivre. He lived in the 1600s as well. Carl Friedrich Gauss. It's Gauss. Gauss and Bernoulli. This is why I was going to get pictures made, because I was going to be like, this guy and this guy got together. Gauss lived years after Bernoulli, okay? But they both, it's almost like one scientist started the ball rolling, and then all of these other scientists continued the ball rolling throughout history, okay? To give you an idea, because they all lived at different times, but through all of their mathematical geniuses, okay, through all of their mathematical progressions, we have what we call today statistics, the probability of something happening, and kind of like a prediction. We have a blueprint where we can predict things, and stats are one of my favorite things. It's, hold on one second. So this is Laplace, I think is how you say it, also developed methods of statistical interference based on direct probability. At the time, the problems in applied statistics were mainly from demographic and from the natural sciences. It was therefore natural for Laplace to create a theory of testing and estimation compromising relative frequencies. The arithmetic mean and the linear model, which we write in forms. And listen, I can't read these forms, y'all. It's like B equals /B1 BM / listen. Nope. So there was multiple revolutions in these mathematical forms that helped us predict patterns in humans, in weather, in the economy. And this was revolutionary at the time, even though it dates way back when. It didn't really have a name. And so the second revolution began in 1809 to 1810 with the solution of the problem of this mean, which gave us two of the most important tools in statistics. The normal distribution as a distribution of observations, and the normal distribution as an approximation to the distribution of the mean in large samples. And this is when Gauss, I think it's Gauss, this is really when we see him come on the scene, and this is where his moment in statistical revolution took place. The third revolution was R.A. Fisher, and that took place from 1912 to 53. At the beginning of the present century, of theory of statistical interference thus constituted a large number of ad hoc methods, some of them contradictory, and the small sample theory was only a rudimentary state. Some important questions were as followed. I'm not going to read those, but these people are important because these people studied math for years. I mean, they were mathematical geniuses, and they came up with a formula in math that can predict things. I mean, it's like intuition, but on steroids. So it seems like through the centuries, they have tweaked the mathematical formula. Pretty revolutionary stuff. How did we go from this, being able to predict things through numbers, to just not even using it. So in 1733, this is when we see Demoivres, Demoivres. He comes on the scene. His name was Abraham de Montfort. He was from a French Protestant family. Hold on. He was a private tutor of mathematics. His doctrine contained new solutions to old problems and an astounding number of new results. It was the best textbook on probability theory until Laplace. Statistical analysis began with the collection and analysis of data long before the term statistic was formalized. Early forms of statistical analysis can be traced back to ancient times with evidence of recording and tallying information on bones around 1900 BC. The formal discipline of statistics emerged in the 17th century with figures like John Grant and William Petty pioneering the use of data analysts for demographic studies. I didn't know where it came from, and I didn't know that it had anything to do with math, which is kind of crazy because I'm horrible at math, but I can turn almost anything into a statistical study in like the blink of an eye. And also the fact that I can read danger out here, like the probability of danger in certain people. That's using stats. I'm using stats with that. Let's see here. Probability was customarily interpreted as the calculus of reasonableness for a world of imperfect knowledge. Enlightenment thinkers applied the mathematics of chance to an implausibly rich variety of issues. They used it to demonstrate the rationality of smallpox inclusion in something, smallpox, y'all, to show how degrees of belief should be apportionated among testimonies of various sorts, and even to establish or preclude the wisdom of belief in biblical miracles. Huh. Statistical mathematics was developed through disciplinary interactions. The mathematical field of statistics that in the 20th century has become an indispensable resource for all sciences that depend on large numbers of observations or on the study of populations rather of individuals, was in fact dependent on what now appear as applications of it for its very creation. Mathematical statistics become possible only when statistical mathematics and statistical thinking had become sufficiently sophisticated in a diverse range of particular sciences that a coherent branch of mathematics embracing these various techniques and approaches could be envisioned concretely. I bet they thought it was pseudoscience back then. I bet they thought it was some kind of fucking sorcery. How are these men that simply know math able to predict the future? I'm surprised they wasn't hung or burned. That's crazy. So it's saying that humans actually needed to catch up with statistics in order for us to start using statistics in a positive manner in society, because we just weren't there yet. And that's probably why it took 3 or 4 revolutions of mathematics and statistical studies to get this ball rolling. Unfortunately, in my opinion, that science that we have is being overlooked. You know, look at the people that they let out of jail with no bond that have already harmed people. Statistically speaking, they're going to reoffend before they even show up for the first court date that they were let out for. It's almost like science, psychology has been thrown out. Okay? I don't know how to explain what I'm saying. I'm just saying that somehow we have regressed, we have de-evolved, we have stopped growing, stopped obtaining knowledge, stopped using years of scientific study to help us generate and cultivate a better society. There's a reason for that. It's all by design that we're not using, statistical analysis to help us in any agency that it would benefit. You know what I mean? Very interesting. So I also, while I was in the library, I also found this wonderful book, and I'm so excited that I found this, because you will not be able to find stuff like this come very, I'm genuinely shocked that I even found this. They did not have a DSM book, not a singular one on the shelf. For those that don't know what the DSM is, I'm going to be fighting for this book to be on shelves for the rest of my life. The diagnostic manual, it is a diagnostic manual used to classify and diagnose mental health disorders in this country. We have had this manual for 100 years. It is updated every so often. That's why we're on the DSM-5. And this book that I found, it's called the Gale Encyclopedia of Mental Disorders. Now, this book was written in like 2006, before the decline of books. And I was surprised that they had this on the shelf, because it's going to be extremely hard to find a book like this that tells you the truth about body dysmorphia. And I just have to read this, because this was created prior to the genocide of our youth in this country. In my opinion, they were, it's genocide, in my opinion. And it was all done for money. It was all by design for money. So body dysmorphia disorder, BDD, is defined by the DSM-5 TR Handbook for Mental Health Professionals as a condition marked by excessive preoccupation with an imaginary or minor defect in a facial feature or body feature or localized part of the body. The diagnostic criteria specify that the condition must be sufficiently severe to cause a decline in the patient's social, occupational, or educational functioning. The most common cause of this decline is the time lost in obsessing about the defect in oneself. The DSM-5 TR assigns BDD to a larger category of disorders, which are disorders characterized by physical complaints that appear to be medical in origin, but that cannot be explained in terms of physical disease, the result of a substance abuse problem, or by another mental disorder. Although cases of BDD have been reported in the psychiatric literature for a number of different countries for over a century. So let me clarify. This mental health disorder, body dysmorphia, has been known for over a century, and it has been in literature how to help these people for a century. They wanted to take body dysmorphia out of the DSM-5. If they do that, that would open up Pandora's box for all of these people who are actually struggling with mental health conditions. See, these people that have body dysmorphia, these young children that are having double mastectomies and sex changes, they want this taken out so that there's not a medical mental health problem wrong with them. And they've been fighting for this for about 15 years. It's not coming out of the DSM-5. And matter of fact, when the DSM-6s wrote one day, we need to revise this and add all of the history that has taken place in this country and the brainwashing and how it's affected these people mentally, because most of these people are not standing on their own 2 feet right now. They're losing their minds in the streets. This article is going to tell us how this should have been treated, how it was treated, and how successful it was treating patients prior to the LGBTQ plus taking over the reins and using this mental health disorder against their own people. It's crazy. So the disorder was first defined as a formal diagnostic criteria by the DSM-3R in 1987. The word dysmorphic comes from 2 Greek words meaning bad and ugly. BDD is characterized by an unusual, exaggerated degree of worry or concern about a specific part of the body or face rather than the general size or shape of the body. It is distinguished from anorexia and bulimia to the extent that patients with these disorders are preoccupied with their overall weight and body shape. For example, an adolescent who thinks that her breasts are too large and wants to have plastic surgery to reduce their size, but is otherwise unconcerned about the rest of their body. So some of the key, signs in these people: body image, a term that refers to a person's inner picture of his or her outward appearance. It has 2 components: perceptions of the appearance of one's body and the emotional response to those perceptions. Association or presence of 2 or more mental health disorders in the same patient. A disorder that is said to have high degree of comorbidity. What is that? Hold on one second, y'all. Comorbidity. Oh, so they've got multiple mental health problems going on simultaneously. Y'all know what I mean. So it's saying that people is likely to occur in patients diagnosed with some other disorders that may share or reinforce some of its symptoms. Delusion, a false belief that is contrary to actual fact. Common delusions include delusions of persecution, delusions about one's importance, or delusions of being controlled by others. In body dysmorphia, the delusion is related to the patient's perception of his or her body, a psychological process in which feelings originating from one source are expressed outwards in terms of concern or preoccupation with an issue or problem that the patient considers more acceptable. In some BDD patients, obsession about the body includes displaced feelings, often related to a history of child abuse. Let me read that again for the people in the back. Body dysmorphia, the delusion is related to the patient's, Body dysmorphia patients' obsession about the body includes displaced feelings, often related to a history of child abuse. This is why books are important, because I can't find this on the internet. I've been looking for 3 years. It don't exist anymore. History is being forgotten. Serotonin, a widely distributed neurotransmitter that is found in the blood, the lining of the digestive tract in the brain, and that works in combinations with norepinephrine. It causes very powerful contractions of smooth muscles and is associated with mood, attention, emotions, and sleep. Low levels of serotonin are associated with depression. All of these things that I just read you are associated with body dysmorphia, and it was saying that patients will have multiple mental health problems at the same time that they're struggling with body dysmorphia. As many as 50% of patients diagnosed with body dysmorphia undergone plastic surgery to correct their perceived physical defects. However, about 50% of patients diagnosed with body dysmorphia also meet the criteria for delusional disorder, which is characterized by beliefs that are not based in reality. This is why they didn't want this out there. Hold on, it gets better. Give me a second. There's so much. There's a neurological reason that these people have body dysmorphia. And for those that don't know, I actually suffer with body dysmorphia. I've had it since I was about 12 years old. And it's in tune with my period. It's part of my PMDD. When I am ovulating, I feel like Shamu that's stuck on the shore, honey. Okay? And it only lasts for about 7 days. Like, I will feel completely disgusting. Like, everything on, I just look so different. I don't even know how to explain it. You look in the mirror and you just look distorted. BDD has a high rate of, I still can't figure out this word, comorbidity. Hold on one second, y'all. I got somebody calling me. I'm just gonna block them. Yep, sure did. I don't play those games. So which means that people diagnosed with the disorder are highly likely to have been diagnosed with another psychiatric disorder, most commonly major depression, social phobia, or obsessive compulsive disorder. So we see a lot of patients that have body dysmorphia that also have other mental health problems, depressive, anxiety, ADHD, you name it. So the neurobiological causes, research indicates that patients diagnosed with body dysmorphia have serotonin levels that are lower than normal. Serotonin that's your happy chemical in your brain. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter, a chemical produced by the brain that helps to transmit nerve impulses across junctions between nerve cells. Psychosocial causes. Another important factor in the development of body dysmorphia is the influence of the mass media in developed countries, particularly the role of advertising and spreading images of physically perfect women and men. Impressionable children and adolescents. Oh, shit. I was thinking, like, that's horrible, but it really tells you how we got here. It's telling you that the media... And then this was written in 2006. So this was before touchscreen phones. And this is talking about advertising. How spreading the images made people feel uncomfortable in their skin. First of all, that's a personal problem. That should, when you see a beautiful supermodel, that should motivate you to get your ass off the couch. But it's explaining why these problems were getting so bad even in 2006. It's saying advertising, spreading images of physically perfect men and women, impressionable children and adolescents, absorb the messages that anything short of physical perfection is unacceptable. Listen, absolutely not. May they then develop distorted perceptions of their own faces and bodies. I have no doubt that it has something to do with that, but the book even said, and this is being quoted from the DSM-5. The Gale book is going off of the DSM-5 book. You even said yourself that it's stemming from childhood abuse. So we don't need to focus so much on advertising, because that's not our freaking concern. We need to focus on the root of the problem, which is how the child's psyche was originally impacted and traumatized, and then we can do conversion therapy, you know. Yeah, I think, I mean, I get their point. A young person's family of origin also has a powerful influence on his or her vulnerability to body dysmorphia. Children whose parents are themselves obsessed with appearances, dieting, and or bodybuilding, or who are highly critical of their children's looks, are at greater risk of developing body dysmorphia. In addition factor in some young people is a history of childhood trauma or abuse. Buried feelings about the abuse or traumatic incidents emerge in the form of obsession about a part of the face or body. This reassignment of emotions from the unknowledged, give me a second. These words are so little. I should have Xeroxed it, honey. They got a fax machine too. Buried feelings about the abuse or traumatic incident emerge in the form of obsession about the body or face. This reassignment of emotions from the unacknowledged true cause to another issue is called displacement. For example, and let me explain something to you about displacement. When they go and cut their tits off, they're worse off than they were to start with, because now they've been re-traumatized, and subconsciously their body knows that. Maybe their mind has been so brainwashed, it doesn't yet, but they're still not working on the root cause of the initial body dysmorphia, which is stemming from more than likely trauma in their childhood. So cutting the tits off is actually creating more trauma, because what they need to be working on is the original trauma, which would be childhood trauma. They're not working on that, and then they're just going to medical professionals, douching over money, and getting a sex change. And that's further re-traumatizing them. So it's just crazy to find this in a fucking book, because I knew it. I grew up getting therapy. I can't remember the first time I was hospitalized. I was probably maybe 6. I was getting therapy before that, but then I was hospitalized. I've had a front window into psychology my entire life. I've been through therapist after therapist. I've had the same therapist for like 3 or 4 years now. I still have a clinical. I still have a therapist. I've had a front window seat to this my whole life. I've met so many children, so many different peoples in foster homes, government agencies, and it's crazy that we had this information and it was literally deleted. It was wiped from the internet to fit an agenda to make money. It's $1 billion industry, sex changes, gender affirming care, $2 billion, and they're expecting that to grow. And that number was from 2021. So you can, it's probably a $3 or $4 billion industry now. It's just so disturbing that these people are not getting the actual help that they need. They are suffering. And it seems like, statistically speaking, when we see body dysmorphia in patients, it is actually stemming from childhood trauma and or abuse, or both. For example, people, an adolescent who frequently felt overwhelmed in childhood by physical abuse of parents may develop the preoccupation at high school with muscular strength and power. Lower serotonin levels are associated with depression and other mood disorders. The central symptoms of body dysmorphia is excessive concern with a specific facial feature or body feature. Research done in the United Kingdom and the United States indicates that the features most likely to be focused on of the patient's attention are acne, blemishes, scars, wrinkles, hair, head, body, the facial feature, size, shape, or lack of symmetry. The patient's concern may, however, involve other body parts and may shift over time from one feature to another. Some other symptoms of body dysmorphic disorder include ritualistic behavior. You know, like furries, like dressing up like a fur cat, and demanding a litter box at your high school, I mean, if that doesn't scream mental health problems, honey, I don't know what does. Can you imagine being that parent? You're a child. No, I'm a cat, mommy. No, you're a child. No, I'm a cat, mommy. Ritualistic behaviors. Ritualistic behaviors refers to the action that the patient performs to manage anxiety and that take up excessive amounts of his or her time. You know, like a furry's day. Patients are typically upset if someone or something interferes or interrupts their ritual. In the context of body dysmorphia, ritualistic behaviors may include exercise, makeup routines, or dressing up like a cat. We didn't have that problem in 2006. So it wouldn't be in any text because that problem had not come about until like 2018-ish, 2020. So I find it interesting that they are saying that these people will have an extravagant routine that aids in their delusion and obsessions. They may try to camouflage the problem with hats, makeup, clothing. Camouflaging appears to be one of the most preferred methods. You know, like men dressing up as women, you know, trying to camouflage that that Adam's apple. And this is the common most symptom among patients with with body dysmorphia, and it's reported that 94% of patients behave in this manner. They try to camouflage or conceal the fact of their delusion. They have abnormal behaviors around mirrors, car bumpers, large windows, or similar reflecting surfaces. A majority of patients diagnosed with body dysmorphia frequently check their appearance in mirrors and spend long periods of time doing so. You know, like men that literally have on 5 pounds of makeup and you can look at him and tell that it took him like 5 hours to do that. A majority, however, react in the opposite fashion. A minority. However, react in the opposite fashion and avoid mirrors whenever possible. Frequent requests for reassurance from others about their appearance. So these people, when they're suffering through these delusions, they will actually request frequent reassurance from others about their appearance. You know, like they need constant validation. You know, like they want you to specifically use their pronouns and address them as female when they're clearly biologically male. I find that interesting. Need constant reassurance. Frequently, they will compare themselves to others. They will also avoid activities outside the home, including school and social events. The loss of functioning resulting from body dysmorphia can have serious consequences for a patient's future. Adolescents with body dysmorphia often cut school and may be reluctant to participate in sports, join church or civic-sponsored youth groups, or hold part-time or summer jobs. Adults with muscle dysmorphia have been known to turn down a job promotions in order to have more time to work out and or dress up like a man. Wow. Economic consequences of body dysmorphia also include overspending on cosmetic clothing or plastic surgery. So my number one question was, does the surgery work? As a result of gaps in research, little is known as of 2002 about the lifetime course of body dysmorphia or of its prevalence in different ethnic or racial groups. The majority of patients in research studies to date have been Caucasians. Still is. Still is. It is not clear whether this reflects racial patterns in the wider society or whether it represents referral basis in that most study subjects are patients in private psychiatric hospitals. Thank y'all for bearing with me. This is not easy. My brain hurts, okay? I can barely read. Okay, the diagnosis of body dysmorphia in children and adolescents is often made by physicians in a family practice because they are more likely to have developed a long-term relationship of trust with young people. As of 2002, there can be no imaging studies or laboratory tests ran that can be used to diagnose borderline personality disorder. I see this shit. I got this ugly heifer over here. It just rolled up. Parked right beside me. It's always one, ain't it? Always one. So the standard treatment regimen for body dysmorphia is a combination of medications and psychotherapy. Surgical, dental, and dermatologic treatments have been found to be ineffective. The medications most frequently prescribed for patients with body dysmorphia are the selective serotonin reuptaker inhibitors, most commonly Prozac, Zoloft, Paxil. In fact, it is the relatively high rate of positive responses to SSRIs in these patients that led to the hypothesis that the disorder has a neurobiological component. So they would recommend medication to lift the serotonin and also psychotherapy. So that's going to run a patient $120 to $160 per session of therapy, psychotherapy, talk therapy, and then the medication, of course. But you know what's more expensive? To convince someone to cut their tits off and cut their penis off. That's going to run you $70,000 to $100,000. I am so surprised I found this book. Hold on one second. The treatments. The most effective approach to psychotherapy with body dysmorphia patients is cognitive behavioral therapy, of which cognitive restructuring is one component. Since the disorder is related to delusions about one's appearances, cognitive therapy that challenges and acceptance self-perceptions is more effective than purely supportive approaches. Let me put this in simple terms. This is saying that supporting these people is detrimental to their mental health and their physical well-being. That the best route is to get them psychotherapy. It says it right there. Right there. Cognitive-oriented therapy that challenges in acceptance self-perceptions is more effective than purely supportive approaches. So for centuries, this dates back century, it said, but for decades, we knew how to help these patients. Somewhere along the line, the medical industry took a hard left into big pharma and delusion. And instead of going off of the medical information we have, they tried to pull this medical information out of mainstream books, medical books, and make it completely disappear from society. This is the truth. The truth is there was no medical necessary reason to start cutting off body parts and injecting hormones. It's detrimental to a patient to do that. I feel like a lot of people need to be sued. A lot of people need to be sued. Speaking of being sued, did y'all see my short this morning? Planet Fitness is being sued by some guy that went to go use the treadmill 45 minutes before closing, and the managers or the employees of the Planet Fitness almost got into a physical altercation with this man. They tried to bait him into a fight, and he's suing them. So we'll pay attention to that because I'm rooting for him. Apparently, the franchise that he sued is part of a 250 Planet Fitness franchise. I wonder if that's the same people that own the franchise in Eden, North Carolina, where I went to jail for crimes that I did not commit and had to spend 3 months fighting for my freedom. Very interesting. So there is multiple forms. There's multiple ways. Sorry, I'm trying to look for the words. My brain is shutting down. I'm hungry. There's multiple ways that we can treat body dysmorphia. Psychotherapy is going to be the first one, and that would be alongside probably some kind of SSR, which will help the serotonin levels in their brain, because this is a neurological problem. It comes from a lack of serotonin. Okay, but also they have high rates of self-destructive behavior, including performing surgery on themselves at home. And many of them have committed you-know-what. Many are unable to remain in school, form healthy relationships, or keep steady jobs. In one group of 100 patients diagnosed with body dysmorphia, 48% had been hospitalized for at least one psychiatric reason, and 30% had made at least one attempt. It also said, and that's what I was looking for, it also said that a lot of patients will try to go the medical route, and it does not help. It actually makes the situation worse and confuses the patient's body more. So I was right in that assessment that if they can keep them confused long enough, that they can continue to make money off of them. You know, for 10 years you're a girl, and then for 10 years you're a guy, and then for 5 years you're a girl again, and then for another 5 you're a guy again. If they can keep you on that psychological roller coaster, they're just going to be collecting more money from you. I mean, it's literally one of the most perfect medical malpractice. Like, it's the perfect medical malpractice. It really is. To use a mental health disorder to con people into modifying their body surgically to make money. When you think about it, it's really genius. I mean, it's mass genocide, don't get me wrong, but it's like the perfect malpractice. Perfect malpractice. Who's gonna know? Is that not crazy? So that is the Gale book of mental disorders that cites the DSM-5, if you're interested, because you're not gonna be able to find that anymore. Yeah, they're wiping all the books away. History, knowledge is being erased. And you know, when I go and I look for information like this on the internet, that is why the internet was created. It was supposed to bring everything from every library in the entire world together and compile it in one place. And it is damn near impossible to find information on the internet anymore. So it's just disturbing. I had a great time at the library. I'm just happy to find what I knew to be true in a book, because it's damn near impossible to do that nowadays. Absolutely impossible. Well, y'all, I'm gonna go. I got things to do. I love you guys. Thanks for hanging out for a little while. Y'all see the beach. I'm gonna go take care of some stuff, and definitely gonna be back at the library soon. I really like that place. They had a huge floor of just tons of reference books. I asked the guy, first of all, they were so helpful there. The guy that worked the front desk, he was great. But I asked him, I was like, where's the reference section? He was like, what? And I said, you know, reference? I guess I'm so old, they took the reference section out. And clearly you can see that they had reference because of all of those literature, or all of the books on experimental education in the United States, and the Times newspaper articles. That's what we would call the reference section. That's where all the good stuff is. It's all the history, all the nitty-gritty of business and economy and sociology, psychology. You don't really see a lot of that on shelves anymore in libraries. And maybe they had a huge selection because they're an actual college. I'm assuming so. It seemed like they literally had books from all over the world, which was very interesting. And I'm sure that most of those are donated through the college. Yeah, I would recommend that if you're interested in going to a library, I would recommend going to a college library, because the local libraries don't have books. They don't have books. And they've taken a lot of the books off the shelves to fit a narrative. You know, deleting information is just, withholding information is just as bad as lying, in my opinion. Withholding information is just as bad as lying. They've destroyed history, and they're continuing to do that. And you can clearly see in these libraries, even this big library that had all these big, beautiful books, you can clearly see that there is a timeline where touchscreen phones enter society, and production and publishing in books, literature, stops. And it's very concerning. Ebooks, you know, doesn't Amazon have some kind of or I don't know. But with the introduction of stuff like that, it's really destroying history and knowledge. It's disturbing. And then Obama coming into office did not help. That's really when we start to see the decline in every branch. That's when we start to see the cracks, is when Obama came into office. It's also when we see the start of the divide, because prior to Obama going into office, there was no racial divide. It didn't exist. Essentially, racism was dead in this country, unless you were on some back country road and you ran up on some 80-year-old man that didn't know where he was. You know what I mean? Like that flow chart. There was a scientist that did a statistical analysis of racism in this country, and you can see when Obama comes into office, it's all the way at the bottom, but right after he comes in, it just, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. It just peaks to the sky, honey, and it's continued on an upwards trajectory. It has. It's really sad to see a chart like that break everything down and then look back in time. I lived back then, okay? I remember when I got a touchscreen phone. It was about 2009. So things have absolutely changed in this country, and Obama impacted it negatively, greatly, along with the Biden administration. I heard he's got cancer. It's probably karma for messing with all them children. Allegedly. Prostate cancer too, right? Ain't that in your ass? Listen, all I know is women can't get it, right? What form of cancer does Biden have? I was about to run and I'm about to. Prostate cancer. Yep. Well. Oh well. Oh well. Karma. I find it fitting. What better way to go out, you know? Wow. But anyways, I love you guys, and please pray for me, and I'm praying for you guys, and I hope y'all have a good day. I'll see y'all later. I'm going to work out. Bye, y'all.